factor 4x squared plus 4x minus 15. Thankfully, there's another way to factor these that's a little bit more efficient, especially when we're dealing with these big numbers in front of our x squared. It's called factoring by grouping. This way of factoring, we take our middle term, in this case it's 4x, and we're going to rewrite this entire expression, but with 4x separated into 2. And we'll talk about how to figure out what to separate it into within the next example. I rewrote this expression as 4x squared plus 10x plus negative 6x minus 15. 10x plus negative 6x is still 4x, but here I just broke 4x into two terms that when added together are equivalent to 4x. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this equivalent four-termed expression and I am going to now take out the greatest common factor of this side, and then I'm going to factor this side. After that, we have two sets of the same thing. I can cross out one of them, and then those are my two factors, and I'm done. Alright, so first I'm going to show you how I decided to split this 4x. I rewrote this equation and I just put little blanks for the two numbers that I'm going to split 4x into. And to figure out those two numbers, I'm going to use this little box to help me. And you'll notice I just rewrote this expression that I started with into this box. So 4x squared goes here, 4x goes next to that, and negative 15 goes next to that. And then in this box right here, I'm going to fill that with negative 60x squared. Then I'm just going to figure out two numbers that multiply to negative 60 and add to positive 4. The numbers that do that for me are negative 6 and 10. Negative 6 times 10 gets me negative 60. Negative 6 plus 10 gets me 4. So therefore, in these two blanks, I'm going to insert 10x and negative 6x. The next thing that I'm going to do is factor the greatest common factor out of these first two terms, and then factor the greatest common factor out of these second two terms. The greatest common factor between 4 and 10, I can take out a 2 of both of those, and then I can also take out an x. So a 2 and an x is going to go on the outside, and my leftovers, 4x squared divided by 2x is 2x, and 10x divided by 2x is 5. Those leftovers go in the inside. I carried down my plus sign, and then I did the same thing over here. Notice that because this first term of these two that I'm factoring is negative, I factored out that negative. That way, I could get the same result on the inside of my parentheses. Then, the 2x plus negative 3, this 2x plus negative 3, the stuff not in parentheses, becomes a factor, and then my 2x plus 5 becomes a factor. Let's take a look at this one. 6x squared minus 17x plus 12. I'm going to take negative 17x, and I'm going to rewrite this entire thing, except for instead of negative 17x, I'm going to leave two blanks for terms that would add to negative 17x. I'm going to figure those out by drawing my original equation inside this box. What's going to go here? 72x squared will go there. How did I get 72x squared? I got 72x squared by multiplying 6x squared with 12. Then I'm going to think about two numbers that multiply to 72x squared and add to negative 17x. The two numbers that multiply to 72 and add to negative 17, I can almost ignore this variable and just think about the number. Two numbers that multiply to 72 and add to negative 17 are going to be negative 8 and negative 9. Thus, the numbers that are going to go in these blanks are going to just be negative 8x and negative 9x. Then I'm going to take my first two terms and I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor. I'll bring down my plus sign. And what will I do next? The next thing that I'll do is factor out the greatest common factor of my other two terms. The greatest common factor between these two terms is negative 3. And negative 9x divided by negative 3 is going to give me positive 3x. And 12 divided by negative 3 will give me negative 4. Here I have the same expression. I can cross one of those out. And what are my two binomials going to be? One of them will be 2x plus negative 3. The other one will be 3x plus negative 4. 4x squared minus 7x minus 2. First thing I'm going to do, I can first, if I want, draw my box, so that way I don't get bogged down in all the other things, but I draw my box, and then I rewrite this expression, putting the 4x squared with two blanks instead of the negative 7x, and then putting the negative 2. So the first two terms, the first term and the last term are the same, and then the middle term gets split into 2. Then what do I do? The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill those boxes with negative 8x squared. And I got that by multiplying 4x squared and negative 2. Then I'm going to need to fill these boxes. What will I do to figure out the numbers to fill those boxes? I'm going to think of numbers that multiply to negative 8 and add to negative 7. What numbers will do that for me? Negative 8 and 1 will multiply to negative 8, and negative 8 plus 1 will add to negative 7. What will I do next? I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor of my first two terms, bring down my plus sign, and then I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor of these two terms. Notice that 1 and negative 2 has only a 1 that can be factored out. What are my two binomials going to be? My first binomial will be 4x plus 1. And my second binomial will be 1x plus negative 2. Factor 6x squared minus 13x minus 28. What will I do first? First I'm going to write my box, and negative 168 squared goes there, for it is the result of 6x squared times negative 28. Next I'm going to rewrite this with the negative 13 taken out and replaced with 8x and negative 21x. Why? 8x and negative 21x, 8x and negative 21x are terms that we're able to multiply to negative 168, and we're able to add to negative 13. Thus, those are the terms that we split our middle term into. Then I'm going to factor the greatest common factor out of 6x squared plus 8. I'm going to factor the greatest common factor out of negative 21x plus negative 28. What are my two binomials going to be? These are the same. I'll cross one of them out. And my two binomials will be 2x plus negative 7 and 3x plus 4. Try these two on your own. For this one, the first thing I'm going to do is draw my box. And I'm going to put 4n squared, 25n, and 25. In this box, I'm going to put 100n squared because that is what 4n squared times 25 comes out to be. Then I'm going to think about two numbers that multiply to this and add to 25n. So blank times blank equals 100. And I can say 100n squared if I want to be super accurate. And add blank plus blank is equal to 25. So the two numbers that do that for me are going to be 20 and 5. 20 times 5 equals 100. 20 plus 5 equals 25. Plus 20n plus 5n plus 25. Now I could have put 5n here and 20n here and it wouldn't have made any difference. I'd still end up with the same thing. Next, I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor. Here I can take out a 4 of each and I can take out an n of each. This is going to leave me with n. 20n divided by 4n is going to leave me with 5. I'll carry down my plus sign. And here I can take out a 5 of each. This is going to mean that my two terms are going to be 4n plus 5 and my other term will be, these are the same, so I can cross out one of them, n plus 5. Over here, I have 4n squared plus blank plus blank plus 9. To figure out how to fill in those blanks, I'm going to draw my box. Here I'm going to put 4n squared. Here I'm going to put 15n. Here I'm going to put 9. Multiply 4n squared and 9, and that's going to get me 36n squared. And then I'm going to find two numbers that multiply to that. And two numbers that add to 15. And the two numbers that do this for me are going to be 12 and 3. 12 times 3 is 36, 12 plus 3 is 15. I'll put those numbers with their x's in here. Once again, I could put the 3x here and the 12x here, and I would still get the same answer. Then I'm going to factor out, oops, I'm using n, not x. Not that it really matters, but. Then I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor. Out of 4 and 12, I can take out a 4. And from n and n squared and n, I can take out an n. Here, this leaves me with n. This over here leaves me with 3. Factor the greatest common factor out of these, which is 3. 3n divided by 3 is going to be n, plus 9 divided by 3 is 3. And then I'm going to just bring down my two binomials. So n plus 3, that tells me I got it right. Cross one of them out because they're the same. And 4n plus 3 is going to be one binomial. And my other binomial, n plus 3. And I'm done.